Hi, I'm Lucas, and this is my 1993 Holden VP Calais.
And I ain't gonna lie, cause your loving gets me high. So to keep you by my side, you never let a wolf fly.
Hey! Raindrop, drop top, fucking up, cooking the hot bar. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, dot. Looking up, open the crock pot. We came from nothing to something, nigga.
It's a rare Series 3, comes in Empire Red, which was the VR colour instead of the VPs, just being at the end of production. Also means it got a few extra things like ABS, which we get rid of, we don't need that. It started life as just a 3.8 litre Buick V6 with a 4L60. Didn't take long before I blew the gearbox, so sourced another 4L60 for it, put that in it. And then basically I blew the engine up next, and I decided I couldn't find a Buick cheap enough, so I was going to go Ecotec. And then I figured if I'm going Ecotec, I might as well go supercharged. And then I went and brought an engine for it, got sold a blown up engine, finished doing the conversion. When I'd done the conversion, decided to go manual as well. It was much easier to put a manual behind it than try and get the L67 auto working, being that these run a kickdown cable instead of the computer controlled loom. So ended up going with the T5, got it all running, new ECU, harness, all of that stuff, and got sold a blown up engine. So first start, it was knocking off its head. We tore it down, had a look, and one of the pistons was missing a big chunk out of it. So ended up sourcing an Ecotec out of a VY. It was a factory manual one this time. So had the holes in the back of the crank for the dowel pins, which was good. You need that with a flywheel, don't want to cut your foot off. And then once that was all done, decided, since I was rebuilding the engine, put a big cam in it, billet oil pump, double row chains, all of those goodies, bit of head work. Had my heads crack tested since the piston was smashed, wanted to make sure there was no damage. Got that all running terribly, so I had a shop do a tune for me. It's got a really fast limiter. This thing sounds sick on the go. It's mental. It's unlike any V6 you've ever heard. And then I snapped 3 clutch cables and decided I don't want manual anymore. I'm going to go with a built auto. So I ended up sourcing a Turbo 700, having that manualized, shift kit, all of that stuff. Got a B&M Stealth Pro ratchet shifter. And while that was out, figured I'd start shaving the engine bay. So welded up most of the stuff, smoothed out a lot of things, covered up a lot of holes, repainted it, painted the firewall to match. Moved all the fuse box, loom, everything's all moved behind the dash. Washer bottle, overflow, everything's down below the bumper and in the wheel wells, like all hidden. Aircon's been deleted and replaced with a catch can, which the missus was not happy about. Driving to Summernats with no aircon is, it sucks. It used to have a 308 open diff in it. I did end up blowing that diff, so I went with 346 LSD. Being that this is a Calais, it's IRS, so I was able to just source an M80 out of a VY and just swap the flange on the front from a 3-bolt over to a 4-bolt and then adjust the backlash, and she was good to go. Used to be on airbag suspension all around. Ended up getting a puncture before Summernats one year, and used a tyre repair kit to plug the hole up in the bag, and that got me all the way to Summernats and back. I've still got that bag, so that worked fine. Now it's, I ended up going with, a friend of mine worked at a customs shop where they made a lot of knuckles and stuff for drift cars, so I ended up getting a set of shortened knuckles, like a lock kit for it, and that was out of a VS. So then from there I had to go with a VS steering rack, control arms and all of that set up, hubs and everything, so figured while I'm on that route, I might as well go with the VT brakes. So I went the bigger 5 litre Series 1 VTSS brake upgrade, 1-inch master cylinder, plastic booster out of a VS. Rear brakes aren't hooked up, but if you know, you know. And then on top of that, there was the suspension I had to work out for the front end. So I ended up going with coilovers out of an S13, being that I still had the VP shell and then the VS knuckles and hub design. I had to get something that fit, and S13 sort of fits. I've got wheel spacers stacked up on top of it to give it a little bit extra height, but you know, it works, so that's all good. And then when the bags came out of the back, I had to weld in some spring locators, and now it's just sitting on SSLs. The rear tubs have been split tubs, so they've been cut straight down the middle, expanded 20 mils, and then I'll seam seal it up. Because I used to have these, well, I still got 10-inch rears on it now, but they're a better offset. I had these horrible 10-inch wheels, and they're plus 42, and if you've ever played around with IRS on these cars, they run a terrible offset, and I had to notch my control arms. They've got big chunks ground out of them to fit big wheels. The inner guards have required some gentle massaging, mostly with a hammer. And yeah, that's how I was able to roll aired out on 10s, which was sick. It was almost tucking wheel stud. That was sick. Now it's sitting on work in motion XD9s, 10-inch rears. I think they're 9-inch fronts. Jap wheels, JDM on ADM. For the interior, I ended up sourcing a VQ Statesman dash. I really like the VP Calais Internationals, and they've got this nice black dash, and then they're all tan underneath. And I couldn't source tan interior for mine. It was real hard to get, but I ended up getting a VQ Statesman dash, which was black on top and had the ebony strip across it. Got some VQ door cards, and then the seats, I ended up going with black WM Caprice seats with a DVD leather headrest. I got a set of VP rails that basically cut in half, welded the plates on top, bolted the seats to them, and I had to delete the middle seat belt and tech screw the rears in, but you know, everything else on the car was unengineered and bit how's it going. So I did actually get this taken off the road about a week ago. It got majored. Ironically, it was for having no horn, being too low, and having bald tyres though. So he didn't pop the bonnet, and he also told me it's a good thing that this car can't do a burnout, otherwise it'd be on the back of a tow truck. I just kind of put my knee over the shifter and was like, yeah, nah, she's 30, mate. She's pretty tired. Definitely not a Summer Nats entrant. This thing with the tune that's in it runs stupidly rich. Like I get about 200 kilometers out of a tank, like a full tank. And we make the trip from Victoria up to Canberra every year. And there's this one stretch, it's like 300 Ks where there's no fuel stations. So I remember we filled up there, and we had a jerry can with us that we filled up as well. And we ran out of fuel, pulled over, filled it up with the jerry can, and then we still ran out of fuel before the servo. We had like this hill we rolled down, and then we had to push it up into the servo, into the Bowser, just to make it to Summer Nats. Summer Nats is probably my favorite thing ever. I don't know if you've ever seen like the first Fast and Furious movie when they're like, streets closed, pizza boy, found a new way home. Like the night before Summer Nats, there's always this thing where like everyone gets their cars out in the streets in Canberra, and like it doesn't matter if they're registered or not, they'll bring them on a trailer and back them off the trailer, and like all the streets are just sort of blocked off. Everyone's walking around, there's all these sick cars doing rat laps or just sitting there idling. It's just insane, and like no one's hurting anyone, and like the cops don't do anything, and it's just this like you know that you just own the streets. Like no one's doing really the wrong thing, but you know that like no one's going to stop you either. And it's just like this feeling of like, I don't know, it's indescribable. My favorite thing is probably the drive to Summer Nats and back. There's something that's just like, it's just basically an 8-hour drive where I live, and it's so cool, like just driving a car that shouldn't be on the road around all these other like basically NPCs. And it's every now and then you get another car that comes along, and like you know when you see each other, like where they're going. You're all going to Summer Nats, you've all got cars that shouldn't be, and it's kind of like when you play Need for Speed and you come up and you see another car cruising around that's modified. It's like that in real life. It is so much fun. I love it. That's one of my favorite things about going to Summer Nats, just driving there and back. Basically, it was my first car. I brought it when I turned 18, and I've basically come as far as I want to come with it. Now it's for sale. I did have a swap lined up with a bloke that had a 260Z. I was going to swap him, and everything was a go ahead. He wanted me to change the seats back to the stock ones and the stock steering wheel, stock wheels and all of that. I'd done all of that for him, and then he was just like, oh wait, is it not engineered? No. It's like, oh man, I want to drive my kids to school in it. Like, what? It's like, yeah, I'm going to sell my family car, and like this is my new daily. Like, bro, it's got a fairly aggressive cam in it, no rear brakes, a manualized auto and like a tune that gets you 200 kilometers a tank. Like it's not a daily driver. And he was sort of like, oh, it's not engineered, ooh woo. So I guess, yeah, now it's for sale again, if anyone wants it. Yeah, I probably need it to fund the drift build. Yeah, that one, not the other one. yeah, 15. I'll take that. Buy it, please. As it sits right now, since it's no longer registered, it's just a turnkey burnout car. Like, starts first go every time, got no rear brakes, gets on brake really easy. But you know, with the lock kit that's in it, makes it perfect for on the pad, but also you could just throw a manual in it and turn it into a drift car if you wanted. It's pretty easy to do sort of anything in it. It's got all the basic foundations sorted. It's got the camber correction bush kit in the back, the lock kit up the front, plenty of power, big brakes in the front, no ABS. All the unnecessary stuff's been deleted, and well, like, it's pretty tried and true. It doesn't break anymore, which is great. You know, once I got rid of the garbage 4L60 and then the garbage T5 and then the garbage Buick that was in it, it stopped breaking. Panda's doing skids. Panda, what are you doing? What was that? What was it? The camera's on, he stops building up boost. And I mean, if we wanted to put it back on the road, it'd be pretty easy too. You could engineer it, or it does come, I've still got the original motor for it, the Buick. You could always put a 5 litre in it too. The auto that's in it's roadworthy, nothing wrong with that. Ratchet shifter's all roadworthy, it's got the lockout and the reverse lights and all of that stuff. And the rear brakes are all good to go as well. You'd literally just got to reconnect the rear brake line with the master. It's sitting there. It's just plugged up at the minute. Other than that, yeah, it's fairly roadworthy. Oh, and the horn's got to be plugged in. Like, it's plugged in on the steering wheel. It's not plugged into anything in the bay. I deleted it when I shaved it, and I was going to mount it behind the bar and never did it.